Okay, you ready for me? Here we go. How much of what you believe do you think is true? Do you think 95% of everything you believe is true? Or do you think it's more like 5% of what you believe is true? See, we have this belief that if we believe it, it's true. But I'm not sure that's true. Right? In fact, I think what we need is a machine that attaches to your computer and you can download your complete belief system into it. And you could download your complete belief system, and then this system would go through every one of your beliefs for as far back as they go, and it would give you a red light, a green light, or a yellow light. It would come up and say, this belief, that's a solid green. That's a good belief for you. This belief, it's a yellow. It's kind of on the edge. And this belief is definitely a red. I don't know where you came up with this one, but it's time to let that one go. Because over and over again, I think we believe in things, and just because we believe in them for so long doesn't in and of themselves make them true. How many of you can think of a belief that you picked up maybe like in a third grade from a classmate or a friend on the playground, and they said it, that this is the way life is, and you go, okay. Right? And so for most of us, our belief system is a bit of a hodgepodge. That's a spiritual term, right? It's a bit of a hodgepodge. And as a hodgepodge, it comes from all over the place. And we add from here or there, from our parents, our friends, maybe from the church, from our religious background we have. And so we have all these beliefs. And what if today you were willing to let go of the beliefs that no longer serve you? What if you were willing to question them? What if you were willing to release them? Do you have a way of managing the clothes in your closet? Do you have a closet management technique that you use? And there's like 3 ladies that are going, yes. 4. There's like 4. All right, there's 5. Okay, and the rest of us, I think most people have the method of their closet has been full for about 2 decades. Right? But that doesn't stop us from buying new cute things. And so the way that we manage our closet is we jam it to the right and stick the next new thing in and then release and watch it go, right? It fills up, it hermetically seals everything in the closet. And for many of us, over and over again, we just jam the new thing in and we don't ever take anything at the far end out of the closet. We just put the pretty new thing in, and we wonder why we can't find anything, right? I think for many of us, that's the model we use for our beliefs. Is we stick a new belief in, and we never bother to go to the other end of the closet and start removing all the beliefs that no longer make sense. And what I'd like to suggest today is that every time you add a new belief, you need to take 10 old beliefs out. Because I believe that most of us overbelieve. That we actually have beliefs that are in conflict with each other. And we will swear that they're true. We will. Well, absolutely, this is true. But it doesn't always make sense with all of our other beliefs. Like, how many of you believe that you were created in the image and likeness of God, right? That's pretty much of a core religious belief. How many of you believe, you don't have to raise your hand, but if you want to raise your hand, you can. How many of you believe that you're created in the image and likeness of God? Anybody? 6. Okay, fabulous. 6 of us. All right. Right? Now, if you believe that you're created in the image and likeness of God, can you hold that belief and believe that you're broken at the same time? Can those beliefs coexist? But they do. For many, many, many of us, we believe at some level we're created in the image and likeness of God. But if we tell ourselves the truth, we also believe that we're a little interesting. Right? That we're not completely weird, but we're on the edge of that direction. And I want you to see today is that ideally those beliefs cannot stand together. It doesn't really make sense to say that you're created in the image and likeness of God, but you're profoundly broken in the next sentence. You can't hold those. So something's got to give. You can't believe two opposite things at the same moment, at the same time. So I'm beginning a new series this week, for the next several weeks, based on the book by Adam Grant called Think Again. And his whole premise in this book is inviting people to think again. And he makes a statement that it takes a lot of energy to rethink an idea. And that's why most of us don't do it. Most of us just keep putting new ideas in, but we don't always rethink some of our old ideas. And they don't always play well together. They don't always go well together. So I'm going to give you a couple of things of what he said. He said, the smarter you are, the more complex the problems you can solve, and the faster that you can solve them. Intelligence is traditionally viewed as the ability to think and learn. Yet in a turbulent world, there's yet another set of cognitive skills that might better able to rethink and relearn. And he makes a case that rethinking and relearning are actually fundamentally important for the time that we're living in. That the healthiest, most well-adjusted people are people that can rethink and relearn and let go of those things that no longer make sense. And I believe that this is really about 90% of our spiritual work. That 90% of our spiritual work really isn't adding new stuff. It's really about subtracting the stuff that no longer makes sense, that no longer lines up with your greatest spiritual truth. That over and over again, that when our beliefs are in conflict, it takes more energy to be us. Because we've got the foot on the gas and we've got a foot on the brake. And we're wondering why our life isn't moving as fast or as well as we'd like it to. So today, would you be willing to imagine that some of your beliefs are not serving you? Like, can you think of just one belief or one thought that you have about yourself that isn't always helpful? Now, what we know is if you think the same thought over and over and over again, eventually you begin to believe that thought, even if it's destructive, even if it's weird. So we actually have to decide what we're going to focus on and put more and more energy in focusing on what we want and less energy on what we don't want. He goes on and says, we hesitate at the very idea of rethinking. Take an experiment where hundreds of college students were randomly assigned to learn about the first instinct fallacy. Now, what's the first instinct fallacy? Many of us, when we took tests, were taught that intuitively, what we felt was the right answer was our best guess. And what they're showing now is that isn't always work. In fact, if you go on, it says this. The speaker taught them that the value of changing their mind and gave them advice about when it made the most sense to do so. Then the students were given 2 more tests. On the next 2 tests, they were less likely to ever revise their answer. So they got more information about how to take tests. Now, can we all agree that for most students, getting a high grade is an excellent part of college? Right? Does that make sense? So for most of us, when we go to college, we want to get good grades, right? It's there, not only to learn, but we want to get good grades. So then when we're taught how to take tests in a better way, and we don't apply any of that information, is that the highest and the best? I would say no, right? That we're actually operating from a belief system that isn't actually moving us forward. That it's actually not about our intelligence. It's about us being stuck in old ideas that no longer work for us, but unwilling to change them simply so that our life could be better. And we all agree that higher test scores when you're in college is better. Just better, right? And so if you know how to do it better and you don't do it, is that a function of intelligence or is that a function of resistance? Resistance. He goes on. Unfortunately, when it comes to our own knowledge and opinions, we often favor feeling right over being right. Now, how many of us want to feel like we're right? I do. Like I do, right? We want to feel like we're right. And sometimes we choose feeling right over being right. Right? Because to be right, we actually have to think about something and see if it actually makes sense for us to keep doing that. Now, I know that none of you were old enough to remember President Reagan. Okay? President Reagan, in a national address to the nation from the Oval Office regarding the Tower Commission, said in March 4th, 1987, "A few months ago, I told the American people that I did not trade arms for hostages." Okay? Anybody remember that? Okay? He went on. "My heart and my best intentions tell me that's true. But the facts and the evidence tell me it's not." And what I want you to see today, right, that his desire, his intuition said this was true. This is what happened, or this is what didn't happen. But the evidence pointed a different way. And what he was willing to acknowledge is, I want this to be true, but it's not true. And I owe it to the American people to tell the truth. And this is what literally, really, truly happened. And I want you to see that within us, there is always this dilemma of what we want to be true and what is really true. Because sometimes what we want to be true, what we want to be right, what we want to be accurate, just isn't. And when we can admit that, when we can acknowledge that, we actually can move our life forward. We can actually advance. Because the amount of information that is coming at us right now is staggering. Do you need me? Are you? Okay. So it's staggering. With advanced access to information and technology, knowledge right now is increasing at an increasing rate. In 2011, you could assume that we now have 5 times more information coming at us than just 10 years ago. 5 times more information coming at us than just 10 years ago. And then he talks about medicine. As of 1950, it took about every 50 years to double the amount of medical information available to doctors. So in 1950, every 50 years, every 50 years, the amount of medical information would double, right? 50 years, like through the course of your career, you would know that in 50 years, the amount of information is going to double. By 1980, the medical knowledge was now doubling every 7 years. And by 2010, it was doubling every year and a half. Right? So how do you keep up with all that stuff? Like, how do you keep up with all that information? And the accelerated pace of change requires that the way we process information, the way we process our own beliefs, is always in the process of changing, is growing. And there's another, this book, I love it, right? He quotes another psychologist, and it's he's Russian, and his last name has about 37 letters in it. So I'm just going to call him Dr. C, okay? Get the book if you want to try to. Studied eminent scientists like Linus Pauling, Jonas Salk, and he conducted what made them different from the average scientist. And he wanted to know why they were so far ahead. And he concluded that the difference for them and their peers was cognitive flexibility, their willingness to move from one extreme to the other as the occasion requires. The same pattern held with great artists, independent thinkers, and architects. Their ability to hold different points of view and be able to hold them without making an assumption. And over again, what I want you to see today is that our ability to unlearn, especially spiritually, is fundamentally important to move our life forward. So can you think of 5 ideas, 5 beliefs about yourself, about your world, about your family that you would be willing to let go of that would allow you to live in a bigger world? Now, if we get attached to, no, I've always believed this and I have to believe this, my family's always believed this and we've believed this for generations, you can hold on to it. But in the world today, holding on to bad ideas or beliefs, it doesn't serve you, it doesn't help. And then over and over again, we have to really challenge ourselves and to put in the effort to rethink those things that no longer make sense. And he gives us what he calls the rethinking cycle. He says it begins with humility. And the underlying premise is, I may not know everything. Would you say that with me? I may not know everything. Now, you don't have to say that to your spouse. You can just keep it in this room, right? We won't share it outside this room. You don't have to tell your family. It's just going to be a little secret for us. We're going to say it one more time. I may not know everything. And then he says, from humility, we shift into doubt. And he said, for many people, doubt is a problem. He said, but doubt actually opens the door to a greater possibility. So from doubt, we take on the idea, what if what I believe is not true? Just, would you be willing to say that? What if what I believe is not true? Like, just breathe into that. What if one of your valued beliefs wasn't true? Could you survive that? Could you survive if one of the things that you held on maybe for years that were important to you, that got you through a crisis, got you through a problem, got you through a challenge, could you hold on to the idea of just, what if it wasn't true? Like, how devastating would that be? Because sometimes it is. Sometimes it feels devastating when our core beliefs aren't true, or we realize that we believe something that was never true. I mean, how do you think they felt when they realized that the world was really round? Like, it took the church another 100 years to come to terms with that. Literally, it took the church another 100 years to come to terms with that. Right? We don't have that kind of time. We just don't. He said the third step in the rethink cycle is a curiosity. We have to be willing to be curious. Like, if you don't know, then what would be true? If what I believed isn't true, could I come across what is true? And then it said it leads to the fourth point, which is discovery. Like, that there's a bigger world out there. There's a bigger possibility. There's a bigger opportunity over and over again. He said he calls it the most annoying. The 4 most annoying things that people say instead of rethinking, and I just want you to hear them. That will never work here. Like, this is one of the ones in church that you hear all the time. That will never work here. 2, that hasn't been my experience. 3, that's just too complicated. I think you're overthinking this problem. And 4, that's the way we've always done it. Right? And I want you to think over and over again, like when we get in that mindset, we're stuck. We're literally stuck. And then he tells the story. And if you want to read along as we go through this, each section each week, we're going to do it. But one of the things he talks about is that in the early 2000s, iPods were going crazy for Apple. And Steve Jobs' engineers, a group of his engineers that came to him and said, we want to add a phone to an iPod. Because they'd already been able to put up like 20,000 songs on an iPod. And he said, we want to be able to put a phone and an iPod together. And Steve Jobs said, that's the craziest, wackiest. He said, I hate my cell phone. I hate cell phone companies. Cell phones are awful. We're never going to be in the cell phone business. And it was a hard no. In fact, there were stories that told that he would throw, when his cell phone didn't work right, he would literally throw it across the room. And at a public speech, he one time said, I will never be in the cell phone business. Right? Right? So in 2004, very publicly said, nope, we're not getting in the cell phone. And his engineers, one of his longtime engineers, just kept whispering in his ear, we're going to have to be in the cell phone business. The way things are going, we're going to have to, because computers are getting smaller and smaller. And he said, we're already in people's pockets. And Steve Jobs kept saying, no, I'm in the computer business. I'm not in the phone business. And finally, his engineers said to him, if you don't do this, it's going to be catastrophic for our company. And so finally, he reluctantly went in that direction. And now iPhones worldwide are the number one cell phone manufacturers. And I want you to hear just this one idea. Research shows that when people are resistant to change, it helps to reinforce what will stay the same. Visions for change are more complicated when they include, visions for change are more easily assessed when they also include a vision of continuation, like what's going to remain the same. Although our strategy might evolve, our identity endures. Now, this is really important because I'm going to ask you to rethink some of your deepest beliefs. But what I promise you is that you're going to continue. That who you are is more than what you've believed. There's many beliefs that you don't hold on to now that you held on before. And as you're willing to over and over let go of limited beliefs and hold greater beliefs, greater possibilities, over and over, your life gets easier. It gets better in every way. That who you are is not just your beliefs. We identify with our beliefs, but we are more than our beliefs. And as we let go of old ideas, old beliefs, old thoughts, we actually make room for a greater experience. When I was in seminary, one of the things we had to do every semester is to write a credo. And a credo, when I had to do it, was every semester there was 8 semesters. So every semester they had a different topic, and you had to write on what you believed your current understanding of that situation. So the first semester was the nature of God. And we had to write this pretty extensive paper on our beliefs on what we understood the nature of God. Next semester, it was the nature of humankind. Then it was the relationship between the two. And there was a whole system created so that we would have to really understand our own beliefs. Today, your homework, if you choose to play, is I want you to go into your mental, emotional closet and say, what are the core beliefs that drive my life? What are those things that for me are really just my deepest truth? What are those things that are my foundation? And all the things that aren't the foundational pieces, I'm going to ask that you just begin to release so that you get down to what your deepest truth is and to be willing to let go of all the other things that are just taking up energy. Has anybody ever had so many programs opened on your computer that your computer crashes? Your computer just says, time out, I need to take a little respite here until you shut some of this stuff down. Like for many of us, we have too many beliefs that are in conflict that are making our life harder. So when I went through this process in seminary and as I've kept up this process through my life since then, for me, I come down to 4 basic fundamental beliefs that drive everything I do. And I try to keep it that simple. I want 4. I don't want 27 because I can't remember 27. I can remember 4. The first one is, I believe the divine... No, I know what it is. I just want to make sure. I believe that the divine, infinite, universal presence and intelligence is fully present everywhere in the universe, and I call that presence God. So for me, God is number 1. 2, I believe that I'm created in the image and likeness of that presence. 3, I believe that as I quiet my mind, I feel the presence of God, and I'm open to divine inspiration. That for me, quieting my mind is when I start to have work to do. Like the first 2 are just given. God and my expression of God, that's just a given. But when it gets to 3, I actually have work to do to quiet my mind. That's my job. And every time I quiet my mind, I feel more God, and I'm more open to inspiration. I'm more open to divine ideas. I'm more open to being guided. And the 4th one is that I believe that as I open my heart in greater ways, that love heals me and blesses me in the greatest possible way. And of all the things I believe, those 4 are my master program. Those 4 are the ones that I come back to over and over again. And when I'm in a challenge or there's a problem or a need, I come back to those 4. I believe in God. Because sometimes we need to believe in God. Like if you're in a big challenge in your life, coming back to number 1 and saying, I believe in God, makes all the difference in the world. And I believe that I'm created in the image and likeness of God. And I believe that every time I quiet my mind, I feel more God, and I am more guided. I can download more of the divine. And 4, every time I open my heart, love heals me and blesses me in greater and greater ways. So your homework for this week, if you choose to play, I want you to write your fundamental beliefs. And if you come up with 27 and that's really what you need is 27, then I'm going to celebrate you and whoop it up and hallelujah, right? If you can distill it down as succinct and as tight as possible, I think it's easier. But I want to know what you really believe. Not what you believed in the 3rd grade. Not what your parents believed, not what your pastor believed when you were a kid. I want to know what you believe today. I want to know what that fundamental beliefs are that you stand on no matter what. And all those beliefs that are just taking up space, they got to go. We got too much going on in our world to give old beliefs free space. If it's not serving you, there's not room for it. Will you pray with me? I invite you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to the activity of God. That there is but one presence and one power, God the good. And today, I invite you to allow your inner life to become so simple. To let go of all that's unnecessary. To come back to what you, in your heart of heart, know is true. Absolutely, completely true. Because you've lived it, because you've tested it, because it makes a difference in your life. Today, we give thanks for the simple truth that sets us free. Jesus said, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So in the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. God bless you all. Have a great week, and thanks for being here. So today we come together to hold the world in prayer, to hold our friends and family, but also to hold every man, woman, and child around the world in prayer today. This is 9/11. So we also need to remember all those individuals who lost their life this day. We hold all the emergency workers who risked everything to go up the World Trade Center. And that we know that God is at work in every situation, even when we don't understand it. That there's a presence, a power of God at work in every situation for a higher level of good. That we are not limited by the humanity of the situation. But there is a level of spiritual good available to all of us. And today that's what we pray for. Not my will, but thy will be done. Thy will be done. And sometimes when we're in a situation, it's really hard for us to let go. We know how we want it to work out. We know what the outcome should be. And the moment we can truly turn it all the way over to God, we actually invite a higher level of good. Today we let go. We truly allow God to be in charge of our life. Whatever the drama, whatever the upset, whatever the situation may be, we turn it over to the one presence and the one power. And we feel a deep sense of relief. That whatever you give to God, there is a higher level of good. There is a divine blessing available to each and every one of us. So this morning, take a deep breath. And as we move into the silence, just let go. Give it all to God. And feel the deeper peace of your soul. Let go and let God. Let go and let God. That over and over and over again, there's this grace, this sweet presence of Spirit. And that as we let go, we are lifted higher. Miracles happen. Transformation happens right before our eyes. Whatever the upset, whatever the disappointment, whatever the frustration, let go. And let God do a mighty work in your life. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen.